thank you guys so much for being here. Like Scott said, my name is Lindsey Mitchell. I'm a sports performance coach. I also have a PhD in clinical psychology, so I really believe in kind of merging performance and mental health kind of counseling. So I actually work with the STPGA Eagles Player of the Year, Asher Vargas. And as of yesterday, you're the newest prestige STPGA champ. She's very excited. It was one of her big wins, so congratulations to her. And I work with just a wide variety. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff today that I feel like, depending on who you work with, I'll try to kind of tailor it to that. Because I work with lead athletes, I have guys Q School, Corn Ferry, that kind of stuff. And then I have a client that's goal was to compete in her first Ladies Club Championship and not finish in last place, goal accomplished. So hopefully the strategies that we talk about today will kind of span whoever y'all are working with. So I don't know if anyone has heard me speak before. I'm super casual. If you have a question, if I'm talking too fast, you don't understand what I'm saying, stop me. We will have some Q&A time at the end, but please feel free to interrupt. Usually if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it. So don't be shy and interrupt me. So kind of go over what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about the power of the coaching relationship. That's what I'm going to start out with. I figure no better way to start a conference than telling you how great you are. So we'll start there. And then we're going to talk about strategies to kind of enhance that player retention. So a few things that we use in the mental health world to capture clients' attention, make sure that what they're teaching is absorbed by them and retained. So I'll just give you guys some trade secrets. And then I'm going to go into some tangible strategies. That was feedback that I've received in the last couple of years. I really want you guys to take something away that the mental space obviously is an important one for the game of golf, but it can be kind of high in the sky, right? We talk a lot about words like process and routine, and we don't always land the plane. So I really want to have you guys take a couple things away that you can then put me out of business and use it for your students. And then, like I said, I'll leave some time at the end for some questions. Typically, I don't get to all the questions, and you might have very specific questions for maybe someone that you're working with. So I'll pass out some index cards. I know y'all are here for the day. If you come up with a question, go ahead and write it down if we don't get to it. I'm going to send all the slides, some extra resources to Scott, and then I'll go ahead and go through all those questions and answer them, and then he's going to email that out. So if I don't get to you, you can either talk to me after or write it down, and I'll make sure that I get to it. I know sometimes questions can be kind of super specific. So I'm going to start out with a little video. Let me know if you guys can't hear it.
How you doing, Ham?
It's a special bond that we have, and I think I wouldn't have it any other way in terms of our balance of coach and friend and building that trust.
Honestly, it's good. They just wanted to go in.
She's like a second mom to me. I've been with her since I was 7 years old, and we've done this whole entire journey together. So it's very cool that we can start it in the same way.
I know how lucky I am to have them there for me. So I'm excited for the years ahead to come.
This is Diana Taurasi. She says, I know I can go to Coach Ariano for anything. I have enough confidence in him that I've told him things I have never told people I've known my whole life. Coach really worked on getting to know me. He figured me out like no one else ever has. So that's why I trust him with anything.
We had such a close bond, and he kind of guided me through it all. Always wanted the best for me, and I trust him with everything. And I think that's very important to have that connection.
I still talk to him to this day. He watches every game, he watches every at bat. He'll send me little clips, he'll send me just little tidbits here and there. But I can't thank Coach Aaron enough. And not only he just really helped me mature as a player. Kind of the middle game, and we're all starting high school environment.
Sean was obviously a huge help in just help guiding me and believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself.
When I'm an 11-year-old kid and he comes up to me and says, you could make the Olympic team in 4 years, obviously that's something a kid wants to hear.
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, okay, this guy says he can do it, I might as well trust him. And ever since then, I think I always have trusted him. I think that's why I never left. He taught me to goal set. He taught me to dream as big as you could possibly dream. I think that's one thing that I've lived on for so long is, as an 11-year-old kid, that I dream of being the the best ever? Yeah, everybody does. But it's like the sacrifices that I made and the goals that I had and the things that I had to do to be able to get to that point or even have that opportunity. I think that was something that he taught me at a very young age.
One thing back to the question that I would learn from Coach D is that work on practice perfection every single day. Every single day. He always used to tell us the practices are going to be fruits and hard in these games.
He's just a great coach, and he don't sugarcoat anything with anybody. Like, if Cat up, he gonna get on Cat. If I'm up, he gonna get on me. If Rudy up, he gonna get on anybody that's messing up throughout the game. And I think that's what makes him the best coach in the NBA to me, because no matter who it is, no matter how high the player is on the pole, he's gonna get on you from start to finish. And it starts with the head of the snake, and he's the head of our snake.
Coach has to be understanding enough. Some guys you can kick in the butt, some guys you can pat on the back, some guys you can be funny with. But it's your job to understand what you need to do to get each guy to perform at their absolute best. And the really good coaches can do it.
I always figure it's better to hear it from some of the elite of the league, and just to remind you guys how important that relationship is. I know for me, you see client after client, athlete after athlete, you kind of be in the grind, and you forget, I think, how important and powerful you guys are to your students. I know golf is a pretty affluent sport, and you have a lot of very well-off clients. Obviously, this beautiful facility that we're at kind of shows that, but also reminding that not everybody can do that. And so when they're in that lesson and they're paying that money and they're showing up, you have this beautiful time to capture their attention and make an impact. And so to have kind of such elite athletes talk about, somebody believed in me when I did it, or I was able to trust kind of that relationship, I think we have a chance to really make a difference and an impact. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time not only reminding you guys of the power that you have and the greatness that you have and the ability to impact kind of people's lives, but also talk a little bit about how we can take that relationship, build it even stronger, and make even more of an impact. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about this before we go to strategies. So just like I said, talking about the power of the relationship. So in the world of psychology, we agree on very little. My lawyer brother tells me that we're a soft science for a reason. There's a lot of things that we don't agree with. So we have a lot of different research, a lot of different conflicting research. But one thing that we can agree on is the power of the relationship. So in my profession, there's something called your therapeutic orientation. So this basically just says what I believe works in the room with our mental health clients. So either I'm more cognitive behavioral, I'm more psychoanalytic, so I'm more kind of like Freud. So we have all these different, there's 8 different ways to get people through the healing process. What our research says is none of that matters. We spent about 2 years in school trying to figure that out, and then it turns out it doesn't really matter. The most powerful thing is the therapeutic alliance, which is basically just the relationship. So if you have trust, if you have mutual respect, you're able to motivate, you're able to hold this space and this trust, that is the most powerful thing that will get someone to make some sort of behavior change. And so I think as y'all as golf coaches, we also sometimes forget the vulnerability. Standing in front of someone that you value and trying to hit a little white ball the way that you want it to is actually super stressful. And so I think sometimes you all forget that you are intimidating, you're very qualified. And so when I'm taking a lesson, there's nowhere to hide, right? I'm either going to hit this really well and be excited and look back for your approval, or I'm going to hit it really crappy and feel like that kind of instant, like, oh my God, I just really got used to that. So if you can build this kind of trust in this relationship, you get so much more out of people. You allow them to ask questions, you allow them to be vulnerable, and then you're really going to see kind of that change. So it starts kind of from that relationship. So this is just a couple. I always like to get a little bit tangible with some strategies. I know for me, again, like I said, you're kind of doing this day after day after day, and kids or athletes will not always make the change that you're hoping for. You might also get feedback. Hey, coach, I feel like I've been doing the same thing for the last 4 lessons. So I always like to get a little bit of data. So it will take someone 5 to 7 times to learn a skill with the expert present. So that means you might have 5 lessons where you're doing the same thing because you're trying to teach that muscle memory, you're trying to figure kind of out what they're doing. And then 14 to 40 times with you not present. So that's why a lot of times people will leave a lesson and then come back and be like, I wasn't able to kind of do, or I hit it great in front of my instructor, but I wasn't able to do that on my own. This validates that you're not always supposed to. And again, reminding them that golf is hard. I was a college softball player. I can hit a 70-mile-an-hour fastball coming at my face. When I try to hit a white ball that's not moving and I can't make it do what I want to do, it frustrates me. And so I have to remind myself that this is not an easy game. And then I will say, just kind of a caveat, is it can be up to 200 times, sometimes actually 300, if a student has a learning disability. And so I know even as adults, you don't always know, y'all are teachers, but you don't have that academic background to know maybe where sometimes things can get crossed. So I think a lot of times we can jump to, they're not paying attention, they're not listening, they don't really want to be here, your husband's making them take a lesson, but just kind of reminding that there could be just a disconnect in how you present that information. And I really liked in the video at the very end that we have to know what each student wants. So you have to be kind of aggressive with some, you might have to be visual with some, you have to be a little bit more in, like, instruct them a little bit more. So just kind of knowing that it does take time to do something that might seem basic to you, but it's actually quite difficult. So one of the other things I know a common kind of teaching tool is to show someone a video of someone else doing the movement. And what we know from kind of an instructor standpoint is that doesn't always work. It can actually create a lot of problems. Because even though you might show like a professional swing and you're looking at maybe like just the rotation of, let's say, their hips, they're looking at, this is Justin Thomas, I'm never going to beat him, or I'm not him, or that doesn't quite fit with me. So one of the best ways is show them a video of them doing it correctly, show them a video of you doing it, you actually do it, and then they emulate you. So just be careful with that crossover. Not a whole lot of instructors do it where they show another student, but obviously that gets into that kind of comparison stage. So the more they can see them do it or you do it, you're going to get a little bit more kind of bang for your buck. And then just at the very bottom, a lot of times I hear this a lot from athletes. I'm a big believer in merging the technical stuff with the mental stuff. So I ask my athletes a lot, what did you learn in that lesson? This is not my best pep talk, but sometimes they're like, I don't really remember what we did. Or he said something about my hands, but I'm not sure. I wish they could retain sometimes a little bit more. So sometimes I'll reach out to instructors and kind of say, hey, what did you guys talk about? Because I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap. So really giving them something that they can walk away with. Again, I think sometimes in that moment, you might get a lot of, yeah, I get it, and you know they don't get it, and they know they don't get it, but no one's talking about that they didn't get it. So really kind of trying to help them land the plane and be okay that, hey, it's okay if you don't get it. Or you didn't improve last week, like what happened, and kind of bridging that missing link. So have them write it down, have them write down those takeaways. Everything's always better. I don't use pen and paper very much anymore, but anytime you can have them write it down, they're going to have that stick in their brain versus kind of a text. You can also send them a video with a voiceover, right? Something they can refer back to, that they see themselves doing it. You guys have all your lines and your boxes and you're moving all the shapes, but then having your voice kind of talk them through that. Also a huge thing is I think a lot of athletes have a hard time, okay, I got this, I can do it great in front of the instructor, now what do I do? And so really telling them, hey, this drill, 10 balls every day, like kind of getting specific instead of just go practice it. The more specific they can give them that checklist of, I did this every day, you're going to get that kind of muscle memory. You can also have like a whiteboard. Sometimes I know there's a lot of back-to-back lessons. You guys are moving really quickly. As you're going through the lesson, one key swing thought, one swing, like feel, a drill, and then at the end you have them snap a picture of it and they can take it kind of with them. So anything you can do that what you learn in that hour that you then make use out of, you know, those 40 hours that they're going to practice hopefully after that. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, it's ironic because my watch stopped working, so I'm going to have to use my phone to keep track of time. But a big power of the phone and technology. So I know sometimes some instructors use their phone to video kind of swings and stuff, but we're all very aware kind of our phone. So does somebody have a phone handy that I can borrow? I can't go past this table because we didn't feedback, he said. No, you're fine. So if I was presenting to you guys right now, and I have this phone in my hand, and I'm talking, it's not my phone, it wasn't even on. Do you guys feel like I'm the most important thing, you're the most important thing, and we're in this together? So even when you have your phone in your hand, even if you're not looking at it, subconsciously, people are thinking that you're waiting for something more important, you're looking for something more important, or you're just distracted. And so you can kind of have a tendency to lose that kind of trust. Think about when you go to dinner and you put your phone on the table. Not more or less polite to flip it over, by the way, it doesn't matter, it's just the phone. And people just keep looking at the phone thinking, you know, what's going on. iWatches, Apple Watches, worst invention ever. This also really rude. People are like talking and going and looking down, and you just lose it. So when you have this kind of valuable hour, especially when you're working with young people, anything that loses their focus takes you 10 to 12 minutes to get them back on track. It's fourth of your lesson because you kind of look down at your phone. So I just say that to just be mindful of what we're doing and when we're doing that. And I have kids, I know me, I'm always checking my phone to make sure things are okay. Try to build in breaks for yourself that you don't have to reference it, and just be aware. You can be looking at the time, you can be looking at nothing that's anything and just taking a glance at it, but can really disrupt kind of flow. And so it just allows you to miss things. The average person says they look at their phone once every hour, and it's actually every 12 minutes. So sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing. And so just kind of be aware of technology. You can also model really good behavior, right? You don't want other people distracted when they're in your lesson, so kind of trying to model that. So I just talked a little bit about technology. I won't lecture anymore. Just be aware of kind of your actions and behaviors and the distractions that it can have in the lesson. So we're going to move kind of to mental performance skills. Does anybody have a question about power of the coaching relationship? Agree, disagree? Any comments before I kind of switch gears? Really the main takeaway is that you matter, you're important, your time matters, you are valuable. And just realize that you guys hold a lot of power to impact a lot of change. Try not to take that lightly, even when you're on your 7th student of the day and it's only Monday. And it feels like it should be Friday, and for me, a glass of bourbon is waiting for me in the meeting. So I'm going to move a little bit to the mental performance skills. I was really thoughtful with the 3 ones that I'm going to talk about for various reasons. So the top one, I get a lot of frustration tolerance questions. I tend to have a bad hole, and then that turns into another bad hole, which turns into another bad hole, and I complain. If I could just get rid of the 2 double bogeys, if I could not have a 9. So I get a lot of kind of how do I stop that kind of snowball effect. And the mental kind of game is usually broken into kind of 3 categories. So we're going to have some really tangible skills. So this is something that I really try to do is we take a concept and then we give an athlete something that they can do in the moment on the golf course. The biggest thing that you want to do for the mental game is eliminate the panic, right? So again, college softball as a pitcher, so not quite as many places to hide. But when you're in that team environment, there's a lot of places to hide. I could play really terrible, my team could play great, we win, nobody cares that I suck, right? Just the opposite, I could play great, we could lose, and everyone blames me anyway. But on the golf course, it's just you. And so especially with kind of youth athletes, I have a lot of respect for them. They are out there by themselves, they have to kind of figure it out. So really trying to give them a skill that they can lean on that eliminates that panic. So the first thing is going to be an actual kind of skill. The second thing I try to do that you'll see a lot is we're just meshing the technical stuff that y'all work on to the mental side. So it's a little bit more conceptual and we're kind of bridging that gap. And then the third thing I try to do is it's a worksheet, it's an activity, it's actually something that you're going to have them do like a homework assignment. So those are usually the 3 things. So I just picked one topic of each and I'll talk a little bit about that. By no means is going to encapsulate every kind of mental strategy, but we'll give it a try. So frustration tolerance, kind of the first thing that I want to talk about. So the idea is there's a lot of research out there on the power of positive thinking. Stay positive, keep it positive, be positive. There is no research that says positive thinking impacts performance in a positive way. Makes people feel good, and it sells a lot of books, but statistically and research-wise, it doesn't actually impact performance. What does impact performance is less negative thinking. So the idea is not necessarily to be more positive, but to be less negative. And so one of the ways that you can do that is you have to own and be very honest and genuine with what is actually happening. Does not do anybody any good to stand up and say, I'm striping it today, when we're not, right? Or to stand up there and be like, I'm not even gonna worry about that water. Well, we might actually want to worry about that water because I've been hitting it left all day. So we actually do need to acknowledge that. So if you can get someone to kind of say, I'm a little bit worried about that water, I need to make sure that I don't do A, B, and C, and then you can then get proactive and solution focused. So people are sometimes afraid to acknowledge the fact that they're nervous, that they're struggling, that they're having a hard time. And what we want to do is actually all thoughts are okay as long as we don't get stuck in them. So we want to acknowledge that frustration. I just made a double. I just dropped X amount of shots. I can't believe I just four-putted. I'm too good to four-putt. And not everyone's too good to four-putt, but whatever you want to tell yourself. And so I think if you acknowledge that, then we reset, regroup, and figure out kind of what is next. So the idea is we want to do something physically that helps decrease our heart rate, decrease our adrenaline, and kind of get us back in the game. So our physical body is sometimes one of our best assets for the mental game. So as you know, if your heart is beating and your adrenaline's running, it's one of the few sports where that works against you. Right now my tempo is off, my timing is off, my upper and lower body is not connected. So we can really use that physical body to kind of regroup and reset. And the way to do that is there's a physical reset. There's a small, medium, and large physical reset. And so I kind of just want to go through what it is that I'm talking about, and then I'll go into kind of when I want you to use it. So a small one is just, I flubbed a chip shot, I missed a putt, I hit a drive maybe like not exactly the way I want to. Life's not going terrible, but I'm a little frustrated. So the mental game is very similar to dehydration. By the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So you have to drink water throughout the day to get ahead of that dehydration. Alan, maybe drink some water, I appreciate that. So the same with frustration. We actually want to get it before we start feeling like, okay, they're crying on the golf course, they're slamming the club. We're already so far at that point that we get in like crisis intervention mode. We actually want to get them when it's just, man, that wasn't a great shot. So after a poor shot, or before the next shot that you're struggling with. So let's say that you flub a chip shot. The next time you have that chip shot, you would want to do a physical reset because your brain is going to remember the very last time that you did that skill. So sometimes it might just be, I hit my 5-wood that, so you would use this physical reset the next time that you had a 5-wood in your hand. So it doesn't always have to be immediately after. And so one of the small ones, like I said, it's just something really, really quick. So I can take a ball marker and have it in one pocket. I take it out of said pocket. I take my 10 steps to be like, I can't believe I did that. That was not great. I'm better than that. I hit that mark. I take it and I move it over to the other pocket. We're crossing our right brain and our left brain. We're going from our emotional side of our brain to our solution focused side. Take a breath and kind of keep going. You can do the same thing with like a T and like your hat one side to the other. I have girls that will put it on the top of their ponytail to the bottom, but just something really quick that you can kind of move and adjust. Some players will use like a ball marker in their hat. You can flip it like 3 times. So you would take it off, take your steps, be upset, put it on, flip it, and kind of keep going. I have an athlete that uses their glove. So just want to kind of secure it, pat it down, let's get back into it. The key is not what you do, it's that you do that reset every single time, at least for that round. So you don't want to one time use your glove and one time use your ball marker. Because what we're trying to do is eventually, when your body does that physical reset, your brain is automatically going to know what it's supposed to do. Oh, when she touches her glove, I take a big breath, my heart rate decreases, and I get back to it. So that's why we always want to keep it the same for the most part. So a medium reset might be after a bad hole. So you make a double, or just a bad score, make a bad par, if you're frustrated after a bad hole. Also, if you have a parent or competitor conflict. So each one of these things, what's happening is your adrenaline is going to get higher. Your serotonin cortisol levels are going to get higher. So this is an attempt to slow all of that down. The more frustrated you are, the bigger the reset has to be because your levels are a lot higher. So also if like I said, if all of your tee shots have been bad, you're going to want to do a medium-sized reset before every tee shot. So you set your bag down before you get on the tee. I do my physical reset. I walk on there a little bit less nervous and a little bit more focused. So something like that, you untuck your shirt, you tuck it back in. Again, the idea takes a little bit longer to do, allows your levels to come back to kind of baseline. Untie and retie your shoes. You can switch your glove or ball. That was a little tricky. Some people are a little superstitious, so that's kind of player dependent. Or you can wipe and clean off your club. Get that bad juju off, clean that club, and kind of reset. Works really well with your drivers or woods where you have a cover. Just take the cover off, clean the club, put the cover back on. Takes a little bit longer, lets you focus on something else for a minute. A larger reset is going to be when life's really not going well. So this is really kind of, like I said, we've moved a little too far, a little bit crisis management. We're just trying to finish the round, save some dignity, get things back together, and try to take something kind of from the round. So this could be at the turn of a difficult round if you want the players to kind of reset. You see it a lot, you shoot 45, 37, right? They rebound it. Or you make an 81 round turn into a 78 round, right? So just something that kind of, all right, I gotta make the best out of the holes that I have left. Or following a big hole, a big blow-up hole, that means something different to everybody. Or after a rules official interaction. That is one of the most stress points at kind of any level. So pace of play, or if someone gives a rule, now I'm backed up, I feel like I have to hurry, I'm moving too fast. So the beautiful rules officials that help us out can also hurt us in the sense that usually people will try to speed up after something like that happens. So always really good to do a little bit of a reset. To change your socks at the turn is a really big one. I have college athletes that play 36 holes, change their socks after 18. Just refreshes them, it makes you feel better. Your feet feel better, you play better. I'm a big believer of that. So something like that, you can take the belt on and off. Again, these strategies are also supposed to not draw a ton of attention. People untuck and tuck their shirts in all the time. So it's just something that you can do that you know kind of what you're doing, but it's not drawing a ton of attention to you. Get a little bit bigger snacks. So if you have a sandwich or you have a banana, something that takes a little bit more time to grab and eat. You can also jot a couple things down in your yardage book, your scorecard. I'm frustrated about ABC. My swing thoughts are XYZ. So just a little something to kind of slow you down, regroup, and kind of get back into it. Does anybody have any questions on that? Yes, sir.
With the resets, is it a lot? Is it time oriented too? Like a bigger reset takes a little bit more time.
Kind of. The idea is you really, I'll get into this on my next slide, you really just want to be mindful of what's happening in your body.
Okay.
So for some people it's 10 steps, for some people it might be 25 steps, for some it might just be kind of 1, 2, 3, I'm okay. So really that mindfulness, and I always tell athletes to do like a body scan. Has the heart rate feel, has the brain feel, do you feel like that was a long enough amount of time? And once you do it long enough, you'll kind of start to get in that habit of kind of what works.
Okay.
Yeah, really bringing that awareness to kind of the individual piece. Usually the time that you walk is like the small one is average 10 to 20 steps. Medium one is an average of 2 to 5 minutes. So you really have to kind of get ahead of that one. And then that larger one kind of falls in that 2 to 5 as well. Just depends. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What about like people that have like an extra hairband and they snap their wrist? Is that seeing anything positive or negative?
Saying that actually works. That one, like impalement of the body, is always a hard one that I have to get people on board with. But it is one to actually make bracelets that can actually snap themselves. So yeah, that works too. All you're kind of trying to do is draw some attention, grab your attention. I have a player that pinches their arm, but I try not to lead with that. But if that's something they come up with, I kind of roll with it and see what happens. So yeah, like bruises on the back of his arm. Okay, we gotta figure something out. I also had a player that their large reset was to go to the bathroom. He was winning his first high school tournament and he went to the bathroom And they were like, are you okay? Do we need to like figure this out? So you might have to kind of figure out, okay, we gotta come up with something else. You can't be like the guy that goes to the bathroom at the end of every hole. So yeah, but that does work. The idea is just to grab your attention, kind of snap all you're trying to do is snap that brain from spiraling, right? If you're terrible, what are you doing out here? Go play tennis, and you're just kind of trying to snap yourself back, distract yourself a little bit, and get to it. Any other questions? Yeah, it's more common than I probably like it. Like I said, Amazon the other day when I was looking, actually make. They make those that they do it. So yeah, it's probably something similar. Some people will do that instead of slamming a club because they want to get out some sort of energy. I think that's actually how things like that started. Like, I'm pissed off, so I'm slamming a club. We'll do something else, right? So that I think is where kind of that started, and then it's kind of gone and exploded from there. Anything else? All right, so one of the things too, just kind of before we move on for the resets, like I said, it's intentionality that's the most important. So there's not this magical, I move my teeth from one side to the other and all of a sudden I feel better. You have to be super intentional about it. I'm taking my marker out of my pocket, I'm picking a spot on the golf course, I'm taking slow breaths, and then when I take that step, I intentionally kind of move it back to the other pocket. So intentionality is a huge thing. You also want to keep your head up and out. So one of the big things that I'll get a lot of parent feedback is their body language is terrible. They're hanging their head, their shoulders are slumped. Lots of fights, because then the students are like, I was fine, I was just annoyed, so I was looking down from the ground. And give them this whole fight about body language. I talk about body language a little bit differently. If we are trying to create a new thought, we have to create a new neural pathway in our brain. You cannot create new neural pathways in your brain if you're looking down. Your eyes have to go from left to right, and you have to be moving forward in order to move something from the emotional side of your brain to the cognitive side of your brain. So I talk about body language as if you're going to do something like this, looking up and out as you do your physical reset is going to make that thought a little bit more impactful. So you can use body language as opposed to like an attitude thing, because that's ambiguous. You can get into a big kind of, I wasn't mad, I just looked mad. Or I was dragging the club because my hand was asleep. You'd be surprised what people will say. But if you can kind of use it that you're going to get more power if you're looking kind of up and out. Head up, shoulders up. Not only are you going to have better thoughts, but you're going to look better, feel better, and then you kind of get the power of body language as a secondary thing. Slow down. Big thing is speed up. Everybody speeds up after a bad shot. Some people speed up after a bad shot because they're embarrassed and they want to hit that chip shot really quickly before someone doesn't realize that they hit a bad chip to begin with. Or like, I know if you've ever played, maybe someone putts it, you're like, nice par, and they're like, oh, I flubbed a shot back there, it's actually, a double. So people will inherently speed up for a lot of different reasons, so really having them slow down. If you're gonna do a physical reset, tell people take strides at half pace, count your strides. It would normally take you 10 steps to get there, try to get there in 20 steps. So slowing everything down, as we slow our body down, we're gonna slow our mind down. Taking that kind of deep breath. Yes, sir.
Obviously, we're talking about this
Did you speak my next slide? I'm just kidding. No. I was gonna say that actually too is a big point is this stuff is frustration tolerance. It's actually just emotional tolerance in general. So our brain doesn't, to your point, know the difference between good adrenaline and bad adrenaline. It's just adrenaline. They don't know the difference between a good heart rate increase and a bad heart rate increase. A lot of times people birdie a hole and then hit a really bad tee shot. Because I'm excited, this is awesome, like I'm moving at a kind of a faster pace. So great point. You really want to know that my body in general, the goal is to keep it steady, good or bad. We're trying to eliminate these emotional like high highs and low lows. So yeah, good or bad, this can be used for anything. So again, we're creating that awareness. Also too, lactic acid will build up as your heart rate builds up, and so that your muscles are going to get slower, they're going to be more tense. And again, in golf, we want that smooth, loose, tall swing. So one of the things you can kind of stretch out your arms, you can move your neck, how you twist their body as part of their physical reset as well. So again, to your point in the back, it's very individualized. So when you make a great shot, where do you feel that in your body? right? When you make a bad shot, where do you feel that? Some people kind of tense up, so the reset would include kind of pushing their shoulders back. Some people feel it only in their heart rate. All right, I'm just gonna take some deep breaths, get a drink of water, and kind of slow my heart rate down. But yeah, on a good point, good or bad, our body doesn't know the difference. So really teaching, and that's the other thing too, the mental game, we talk a lot about what's wrong and what to fix. We do want to spend time on what's going well, what's positive, and what assets we can kind of bring to the table. So we don't always want to go into kind of the problems. We want to also do what works and how we can use that to our advantage. So be intentional, slow down. I'm always saying that a good kind of point is if they have a cart or they're carrying, when you set down your bag, that's a good time to kind of do a reset. A little bit harder for recreational golfers to do a reset if you're in a golf cart. Same thing, when you put your foot down to get out of the cart, has something that you do kind of at your bag before you kind of start. So getting creative. You'll also see college golfers typically do worse when they're in carts because the game is going by so much faster. Whereas when you're walking, you have that time to kind of regroup. When you're in carts, everything kind of speeds up. You're almost expected to play faster. So you have to be a little bit more intentional about kind of resets. Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
So I think one thing I see players struggle with is they're used to walking and carrying their own bag, and then they go to a USAM qualifier, and then they get a caddy. So I found in the past, I said, just don't use a caddy, carry your bag, and whoever your caddy is can walk with you. But what's your opinion on that?
Kind of a mixed bag. I think it's pretty player dependent. A lot of times I think with stuff like that is a fatigue thing. What I always tell players to do is get your caddy involved in what we're trying to get them to do. So when the caddy puts down the bag, they hand you a towel to clean your club. Or the caddy puts down the bag and you guys take a breath together. Or hey, we're moving too fast, they slow down so the player slows down. So if you want to kind of do that, you just have to get the caddy kind of on board with what it is that you're trying to do. I think that's not a bad strategy, just to have them carry their bag. It's not wrong. But if you wanted an alternative, I would just say have them be a part of the process.
It seems like their feedback to me is they like carrying their bag.
Yeah, so that's the feedback, carry away, right? Again, it's a comfort thing, it's a comfortability thing. Your bag, like there's a lot of kids that won't use a push cart for the same reason. Like, it's 120 degrees, like take your push cart. But if it's a comfort thing, and I don't know if you know this to be true, but if someone is saying that it's a comfort thing, you're more than likely to lean into that, use it, and then when you try to convince them to do it, it'll usually throw them off. So yeah, whatever feedback you're getting, there's not a wrong answer. The more comfortable you are, the better that you're gonna play. But if you want to use a caddy or you want to because of fatigue, try to get them involved, especially even with feedback in general. These are the things that I'm trying to say to myself so you can remind me. So anytime you have someone else that becomes a part of your team, you kind of have to let them know that this is the messaging, this is what's helpful, and so the physical reset can be the same. But yeah, if they want to kind of do their own thing and stay comfortable, let them. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Sir.
So like, when you suggest that a player has a reset, like, often it's going to be based on skill level of what they're comfortable with. Well, let's say a player has never been forward the par, and they start off and they're forward to the first 4 holes.
Reset. So whatever for them is an emotional high or emotional low. So like for some people, a double bogey is a great score, right? So you never want to make it dependent on that. What I try to do with players, if we go back to this, is like a poor shot. I would actually help them define what that would mean. Because some people, like I think that's what's hard. I know when I've caddied for really elite players, what I think is a good shot, they're like, that's a really crappy shot. So really helping the more you can make this individualized and let them tell you what a poor shot is, what, they have a score, I want to break 100. So kind of utilizing what their rubric is as opposed to just a standard rubric. Is that your question? Okay. So same thing with exciting. So like I know my mom, for her to break 100 was a really big deal for a long time. When she would make a 9, it would like send her like off to the moon. And so for her, that would be when she would kind of reset. If she made a double bogey, that was a good thing. Whereas a bogey on a hole might actually get her too excited and she would have to reset. So you just kind of have to figure out, like you said, their skill set. So I would actually, if you were to give them something like this, and you would actually have them define each one of these things. So like what's a conflict? If you have a dad that's just kind of an ass, past. And what I would consider a conflict might not be a conflict, right? When you notice that the parent really kind of gets your blood going and upsets you. So if you can just kind of go through it with them and kind of define it. Similar to what you were saying, you gotta use kind of, they're the expert, we're guiding them and letting them tell us how they define it or what's comfortable for them, and then you use that. So anything they bring into the room, you use kind of that and figure out how to make it work, as opposed to us telling them what to do. So you're better off saying, carry your bag, how can we make sure that you don't get fatigued, as opposed to don't carry your bag. Or you throw out a suggestion, if they don't take it, you kind of keep it moving. As a mental health therapist, the best thing is when you tell them something, and then they come in the next week and they think it's their idea. It's not great for, like, you're like, let's do that like 9 years ago. But when it's their idea, now they're bought in, and now they're the expert in their own life, and we're going great. So let them kind of come on it. I think what coaches have to do, to your point, what starts out as a poor shot, as they get better, okay, that we're now expecting a little bit more of ourselves. So we might have to circle back to it and kind of reevaluate as they change and progress. Or after an injury, we might have to go backwards. What used to be, a poor shot, I'm actually really happy with that, because we're coming back from an injury, or you've been off for a while, or we're on a swing change. So you might have to reevaluate this in general, both forward and backwards. People's expectations of themselves is not always on track, so if you go through it with them, I think it could be super helpful. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, like the conflict part, say like those unintentional negative resets like with a parent on the board. How do you deal with when they come to you, and how do you work with the instructor to deal with that parent or that situation?
Cool. Gets my mortgage paid is the answer to that. I actually just talked last week to a group of 80 high school parents. It was 40 parents in a Mexican food restaurant. Everyone had a margarita before I got started, and talked about what to say and what not to say, who they're trying to impress. What I think one of my questions that I asked them. So I had a bunch of questions, and I had them put up like a 1, 2, or 3 of what they thought like the right answer was. And it was, what is an athlete's goal? Having fun, college recruiting, or being competitive. And then it was, what is the parent's goal? Having fun, college recruiting, being competitive. We had all kinds of kind of answers across the board. I always tell instructors when they're dealing with the parent to try to get as factual as possible. So, like, let's say they're putting a lot of pressure on, right? Or we're talking about score on the way to the tournament. It is amazing what parents tell athletes that we tell them not to do. And so really just, how is that helpful? How do you think that's helping? What are you actually trying to get at? Because even my parents that are the most negative are probably the most well-intentioned, right? You're saying this for a reason. Tell me what your reason is, and let me see if I can help you say it kind of better, as opposed to not saying it. So I think with parents, when you're interacting with parents, if you own up front, I know that you want the best for your kid. I know you don't want to watch your kid fail. I know that you think they're destined for greatness. We can all agree on that. Let's start there. So anything I'm saying to you is not criticism. It's tell me where you're trying to get and let me help you kind of get there. The other thing I'll tell parents is if you could use this verbiage, because this is what I'm doing, and so then everyone's hearing it from the same way. So not so much that they're wrong, but that I'm right. And if they can help me reinforce the message, they're getting the best bang for their buck. So as much as kind of money and finances shouldn't be tied to it, I do try to tell parents, if you want to get the most out of this, you want to get the most bang for your buck, let's make sure that we're on the same page. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So you kind of like the criticism piece, and I think parents are oddly defensive, and they kind of come in with like, don't tell me how to, like, I know my kid, or I love them, I want them to be great. And so if you can kind of de-escalate that from the beginning and kind of give them that win, they're a little bit more open to, oh, please don't say that. Also, I think with parents, hard and fast rules are really great. Do not talk to your kid on the car ride home. Do not talk to your kid about their performance for 2 hours when you get home. And so if you can just kind of have some hard and fast rules, I think that could be helpful. For me, I'm interested in what the room thinks, parents being adolescent versus not being adolescent. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I kind of get mixed reviews from both instructors, players, and parents. Is that a deterrent, do you think? Think it helps? Do you think it's player dependent? Player dependent?
We tested them. I tested them first.
Okay. bad guy and say I don't let parents come to lessons? Okay.
I do that.
Okay. Okay. Similar, I will tell you, I've had 2 women recently talk about not wanting their husbands there either. So I think it's not just junior dependent. I got some, husbands are bad, right? Well-intentioned, but terrible. Yes, sir.
We generally want the parents there.
Okay.
For a few reasons. Number one, they're gonna have far more contact with that kid than we do.
Okay.
So our best line of defense is to make sure that we're educating that parent on the front end, and like you're saying, that is what we're gonna focus on, let's keep it streamlined to this. And then maybe that helps them work through some of the other things as well, that's making the kid not come back. They gotta work through it, otherwise
Right.
the whole thing's gonna fail.
Right. And telling parents to just not, I think is hard. Like, I'm like, don't, I actually had a parent call me like, I know we talked about all the things I was supposed to do. I did none of that, and my kid is currently not talking to me. And I was like, well, at least I appreciate your honesty and transparency. I tell parents to keep hands in their pockets, but to your point, if you say, like, don't go with them on the range, inevitably it's like, oh, I went to go get them water, I went to go check on them, and then next thing you know, we're at the range. So if we can educate them and they become a benefit, not a deterrent, I think that helps. I do know there's some parents that sometimes it's just a no-go. I have had instructors alternate too. I have them come by themselves, one lesson, have them come with the parent, the other lesson. I've had a little bit of that, but it's kind of a mixed bag from instructors. But I agree, if we get them on board, same with the mental side, I send notes to parents. This is what we're working on, these are some of the things that they've said. And I give a little key like, hey parents, these are some helpful kind of tips. I do have some kids that ask me not to do that. Now my dad is literally going to count how many times we do the reset, there's no telling that. I'm like, okay, then we cannot. So I do ask them if I can send it and just make sure, and then if they're a no, I'll usually just send a summary. So it's not specific stuff, but it's like, hey, this is kind of what we're working on in general. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just while we're on that subject, what is your experience when the player then moves in to play college golf and their relationship with that coach? And they've got 2 great coaches, everybody, and Jennifer, Hall of Famer behind me. But just really adjusting to all of a sudden that coach being that they're being on the golf course, feeding in and out. You know, have you found yourself, you know, at that point, they can choose us. They can decide if they want to go to a lesson, back lesson with them or not. When they make that college decision, you know,
I think that transition is actually one that we don't talk enough about because it is a really difficult one. Not only are they experiencing new life stuff and life is different, or mom's not packing my snacks, I'm packing my snacks kind of stuff, but there's a lot of change there in general. I usually encourage college students to try to get back with their home instructor as much as possible to keep some familiarity. I think the college coach is sometimes open to that, I think less open to that. Also, college coaches are bad, they're nowhere to be found, and then they appear on like a par 3 and they give feedback and it stresses them out and messes them up. That's really where we empower. Anybody can say anything to us. It's our job to filter it, take what's helpful, and dump the rest. So that means in that moment when that coach shows up, you have to be mentally strong. He's going to say something stupid, or he's going to say for me to do something different. She's going to tell me something. I need to know what my plan is and kind of filter what is and isn't helpful. But I think, to be fair, I like for them to keep that familiarity when they can. Most college coaches, I think, are pretty open to that. You're going to get a few that you're going to have a swing thought here, and then they're kind of doing something different. Again, I think we're empowering the athlete to be able to say, I'm getting mixed messages. Can you talk to the coach, or can we all get on a call and kind of figure it out? So I think at the junior level, we really try to help them find their voice, right? And that's one of the things I think as coaches y'all can do. If they can kind of question you, hey, I don't understand why I'm doing that, or I forgot that, or I'm confused, you're going to get that empowered collegiate athlete that's going to be able to kind of find their way. So I think we build that foundation that they're kind of their own expert. But a little bit of I think it depends on, obviously, geographical location. Not everybody can come back, but even if they can't come back for a lesson, to stay in touch. Send a swing video to your swing coach, just keeping that verbiage the same, keeping that familiarity, especially as freshmen, it's a lot of new, so if we can keep as much familiar, I think you're going to move in a better direction. And every college coach, I think, is a little bit more open to that kind of stuff. Any other questions? Okay. So now we're gonna move on to kind of the mental and physical kind of routine kind of matchup. So this is kind of what I was talking about. It's a little bit more conceptual and not so much kind of skill-based. So I know a lot of people talk about the think box and the play box. People talk about that kind of all the time. This is where I go through the thinking, and then this is where I kind of have to move into play. I add kind of an acknowledgement box, and then I add a couple mental things to each box. So the acknowledgement box is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Notice any tension in your body. Are you stressed out? Is your heart rate going? Are you excited? Did you look at the leaderboard and got a rush of something? So I might need to take a breath, get some water. Do your physical reset if that's the appropriate time to do that. And then that's when we acknowledge any doubt. So if we pretend that something is not bothering us and it bothers us, you'll hear that a lot. I was fine, I felt great, and then over the ball, I was like, oh, don't hit it in the water. Usually that'll happen because we were always afraid of that and we try to outrun that negative thought. When your brain slows down, when your body slows down to get over a golf ball, that's when that negative thought's gonna come in unless we've already taken care of it. If we already take care of it and acknowledge it, you're less likely to feel that kind of over the ball. So that's why acknowledging anything that you're worried or scared about can help you over the ball. And then also, again, like I said, if you hit a bad chip shot, before you hit the next chip shot, you have to acknowledge, I did duff the last one, because you're either gonna then duff that one, or you're gonna skull it, because you're trying to not duff it. So instead, I'm afraid I'm gonna duff this, okay, what is it that I'm trying to do? I need to make sure I do kind of these things. So that acknowledgement piece is a really honest conversation with yourself, worries, doubts, fears, excitement. Then when you move into that kind of think box, this is when you would make any adjustments based on worry. So if you're worried about, leaving it short, do I choke down, do I take a different club? Like if I'm thinking about it going left, do I just need to make sure that my alignment's okay, or am I adjusting, a little bit for that? So you make any adjustments based on those fears, and then you turn that negative thought into what it is that you want to accomplish. So that last word, that last thing that you think your body is going to do. So if you're worried about hitting it in the water and you acknowledge that, what am I trying to do? Trying to hit it in the fairway. How am I trying to do that? By good tempo, good rotation, or whatever it is that you're doing. So that's what we're adding to the think box. Again, our physical body is one of our biggest mental attributes. So down here in this arrow, always have students, or when they're nervous, excited, any of those things, to use their body language. Step into the shot with some confidence and momentum, even if you're not confident, right? Fake it till you make it is kind of where this comes into play, right? Shoulders back, I've got a good thought, I'm in the zone, I'm kind of using, and I tell them, press your foot into the ground, create some momentum, you're gonna create that confidence or commitment to shot. Even if you're having that doubt, your body can kind of help you get that. So take the breath, strong body language as you step in, and then the play box. One of the biggest unused resources for the mental game is not utilizing your practice swing. So your practice swing is where you can get technical if you have a technical player, is where you can set that intention. So if you have someone that's like, I can't help but think about my swing, think about your swing and practice swing. So what that practice swing can do is it tells your mind, okay, you know what you're doing. So we've thought about it, we've acknowledged it, we're stepping in the ball with confidence, we take that intentional practice swing, then we're able to have a little bit clearer, really simple thought over the ball. Timing, tempo, target, you can also just really be aware of your physical body. Move around, kind of press your feet into the ground, peek at your target, and go. So that intentional practice swing takes a lot of that stuff over the golf ball kind of happening. So we just add that acknowledgement box, and then we just add kind of one or two layers through the think and the play box. Questions on that? Make sense? Helpful? All right. So this is kind of, I really try to do this when I work with athletes. This is where coaches can really help if someone's working with a mental performance coach or a sports performance person. This is where y'all can be helpful. What are we trying to do? What is the swing thought? What's the feel? Hey, this, they're kind of overdrawing it right now, so that's probably one of their fears. We're really trying to, we're noticing kind of a spike in adrenaline when they get a birdie. They're starting to lead tournaments. We've got to kind of work through that. So y'all see them more than I see them more than likely, and so you guys can spin around to someone if they're working with a mental person anytime we can merge the technical piece and the mental piece and merge those together, I think we do a disservice when we work separately. And I think sometimes I try not to step into the world of swing coach, and swing coaches try not to step on my toes, but inevitably those worlds are connected. So I think we work together better, even if it's just a note, or I always say to swing coaches, if you send them a video with a voiceover, just shoot it my way, so at least I have kind of a working knowledge of what's going on. And also, as we love our students, they are not always the best reporter of what is actually going on. So if we can work together, and then we can kind of move the needle a little bit better as well. So then this, I'm just going to kind of go through. I decided not to put you guys through it, but I'm going to tell you what I would do. So if you were doing a workshop with juniors, this is a great one. An activity, if you're trying to just kind of introduce the mental performance game, this is something that you can do. So this would be a kind of worksheet that we would then kind of lead people through. So you guys are welcome to steal accordingly. So what you're going to do is you're going to give them a paper. You're going to have 10 blank circles on it. And you're going to have them fill in those circles based on who they are. So they're a student, they're a sister, they're a mom, and then you have them put characteristics. So they're funny, they're motivated, they're self-starters, and characteristics of who they are, and then things that they do outside of golf that they enjoy. Sometimes that one's a harder one than you might think. At least have them put down one thing that they do outside of golf. And then you put obviously golf in one of those circles. So this would be an example I use myself. So these are the roles that I play, the things that I like to do outside of golf. I use mental performance coach as opposed to golf. So your player would put golf in that space. So these are the things that kind of make up me. So if I am this whole person, right? So you have to draw a big circle that you are this whole person. But we're focusing on kind of the golf piece. So I'm focusing on being a great mental performance coach. So when I give a presentation, I am one piece of this pie, right? I am just mental performance coach right now. So if they're just a golfer, then they have all of these other things that are happening. So it's like, I'm terrible, the world is ending, I'm a terrible golfer, I don't know what's going on. You can remind them that they have all these other things that make up kind of who they are, and that though this feels like the only thing, they've got a lot kind of more. I'm going to take it a little bit further. If it goes poorly, right? And if I'm like, man, I am a terrible performance coach, I need to go home and reevaluate my professional choices that I can provide to my family, I'm going to utilize the fact that I'm a daughter. So if this presentation doesn't go well, the person in my life that's my biggest supporter is my dad. So he's going to tell me that y'all are a bunch of idiots and that I did a great job and that I should just keep on keeping on. So I can use one of my other identities to get the support that I might need in another area. So that allows them to use that support network. So when you're feeling this way, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a family member, you can use part of this. You can also have them do the other way, maybe what's unhelpful, right? So let's say I'm an adolescent and my dad is really hard on me. Okay, maybe I don't use daughter role, maybe I use friend role instead. But you can have them identify maybe where they can find that support. Then you can also use a characteristic. So if I had a really bad performance and I did a terrible job, one of these characteristics can help me to do better. So this motivated, I'm not going to do that, I know what I want to do, I'm going to use that to have a better performance. So you can kind of use the circles in a different way if you want to kind of take a different layer. So this is something that you want to do when life is going well. So this is not something that you would want to give someone after a poor performance because they're not going to be able to do this. They're going to fill out golf, they're going to put a big X, and they're going to be like, I suck, this sucks, I don't do this anymore. So you want to do this when kind of life is good, or you're just kind of doing it with a big group, and we're just kind of doing an exercise, and then you have them keep it. So then when life is going poorly, you pull it out. Which one, this is what you identified a couple weeks ago. What can we use to kind of pull us out of a bad performance or a struggle that we might have? Anybody have any questions on this? Use it, not use it, like it, don't like it? Yes, sir.
Is there a limit to what the roles are put on, or you say like 5?
I try to have
10 can get filled up with 3.
Yeah, I try to have them do 3 of each. So at least, like I said, you'll be surprised that people can't figure out anything else that they do besides golf. So sometimes I'm like, well, give me at least one more. So I try to get 3 of each category. So it's kind of your roles that you play. So friend, student, daughter, kind of other roles that you play. Few characteristics, so kind, caring, compassionate, motivated, these characteristics of myself, and then things that I like to do outside of golf.
I think that's one of the things that we struggle with golfers.
Contribute in.
As in, like, contribute to the world.
Okay.
Right? And I think sometimes they, whether it be because of family or people they're around, they only think of themselves as golf, which is obviously free. So I think this, I love this, I'm going to do it just so that I can recognize and see value in themselves in the play.
And you'll see that a lot on the college level too. People even on campus only know them as a golfer, right? Like, oh, you're on the golf team. Like, oh, you're on the golf team. Oh, you're on the golf team. And it's like, well, I'm also on student council, or I'm also a student, and kind of doing all these other things as well. I also think that junior year of high school, you see a lot, like they cannot think about anything else if they're trying to go to the next level. That is all they do. That's all they talk about at the dinner table. That's the conversation, and you're doing so much more harm than good. So as parents, could take a little one on this too. Make sure that when you're at the table or in the car, that we split up the conversation, right? That we're taking 15 minutes for golf and then 15 minutes for kind of something else as well. So it's really hard, I think, to step outside of that. And I think anyone in any role, I know I give so much power when I have good sessions with people, or they do well, it feels good, and when they don't do well, it feels bad. So again, allowing them, it's okay to be a golfer, but you're also kind of all these other things. And you can also, to your point, if you want to add different categories, you can kind of play around with that. If you want to do all roles, or if you want to do all personality traits. This is also something if you wanted to break it down to skills. So I have chip shots. What are the 5 fundamentals of my chip shot? Okay, Phil goes in. When one doesn't go well, how do I utilize the other one? So you can get creative with it. I think this is just really nice to bring outside of that identity as a golfer. And I'm a big believer, happy, healthier athletes are going to perform better. So sometimes I think we actually have to give space to the outside world instead of just focusing on the performance. Sometimes I worry that parents are going to find out that we talked about 0 golf for 3 sessions, and they're not going to pay me. But sometimes they'll be like, oh, so-and-so's doing so great, like you're so great. Like we talked about boyfriend problems, and we talked about academic, and we talked about what a gem you are, Dad. With no idea that we had talked 0 golf, and then all of a sudden their performance just gets better because they're able to kind of get that stuff off their chest. I also tell bartenders, I think, are just as good as mental health therapists as us. You guys are also that. You're holding space for them to hit golf balls and maybe sometimes talk about not necessarily the golf game. And just being able to put a club in their hand, do something that they love, and talk to this person that I trust and value. And it might not be the most beneficial technical lesson, but I think you can get a lot of value in that. And again, going back to what I said earlier, you're building that rapport. So something like this can also be helpful if you don't really know this athlete very well. So it's a new relationship and you're kind of trying to figure out the dynamic. This can help you kind of suss that out on kind of their family dynamic, what they do outside of golf, how they see themselves. So this is a great kind of activity also if you're trying to get to know a student a little bit better. Any other questions on that? Okay. That is all that I have. I don't know, I know we kind of peppered questions throughout. So if you guys have other questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you want to go and ask a question that has nothing to do with what I talked about, that's fine as well. Yes, sir. Oh boy.
I would say it is, but it is I'm going to accept.
I think that it can work for you. It's very similar in that owning kind of where you are. I think it's a good space on, you have to sometimes accept that par is inevitable, right? So I think it can work from a score-based standpoint. So a lot of times, let's say hole 12 is a birdieable opportunity. Okay, it's a birdie hole. And I hit a 4 tee shot. Well, this birdie hole is no longer become a birdie hole. Now I kind of have to accept that I've changed this hole into, I gotta work my tail off just to get par. I think when we don't accept it, it has us pushing when we might need to readjust. So I think the idea of that is it allows people to adjust. If I have a game plan, let's say that I'm strong off the tee. So I'm gonna play this golf course and I'm strong off the tee. And I'm struggling with my tee shots. I kind of, instead of forcing that tee shot, hey, this is my strength, I gotta keep pushing. Okay, let me take a step back. I know that that's not happening today. Can I kind of course correct? So I think it just allows you to be more flexible and adjust and kind of come in and out of that like intensity. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, as long as it's not really like the top down.
No, right? It's not like, yeah, I'm hitting it crappy, so 80 is 80, right? So again, I think anytime we use kind of those buzzwords, I think you have to work backwards. What does that mean to you? So like I would ask a student, what are you accepting? I'm accepting that I'm a shit putter. Okay, well let's not do that, right? So now let's talk about like, we need to work on putting, let's kind of work through that. But I think it can be positive as far as a game plan, being flexible, being aware of what you have maybe that day and accepting it. So that you'll hear some players like, I kind of needed to figure out what I had on the range to figure out what I had to work with, right? So I think it can be positive. Every once in a while you're going to move into that kind of cop-out. And also I will say that's the same with what I hear a lot of coaches. My players give a bunch of excuses, right? Well, it was windy, right? Well, instead of reminding them that everyone plays in the wind and you kind of figure it out, I think you can use that for a conversation. Well, what was hard about the wind? Like, what was the struggle? Instead of, like, that's an excuse, like, what are you doing? So I think anytime someone gives you that word, be it acceptance, excuse, reason, whatever, the biggest way to use that is to have them make meaning from it. So really good or bad, it gives you a great conversation. If you feel like it's a cop-out, take that and run with it. If you feel like it's helpful, kind of take that and run with it. So I think for me, that's where I always try to like, it's less about good or bad. If it's bad, let's make meaning. If it's good, let's make meaning. Anytime they can walk you through what that means for them. The other part, when it comes to buzzwords, I always try to be careful. I talk about this stuff all day long, so sometimes I know what I'm talking about. I worked with a kid for 3 months. It's completely my fault. We used the word process a ton of times. And then all of a sudden it wasn't connecting. I asked him what process meant, and he looked at me like I had 12 heads. And I'm like, you have used this word, I have used this word, how have I not asked you this before? So I think also like routine. You'll say, do you have a routine? Like, yeah. Walk me through it, so let's see if it's actually, a routine. Do you have a swing feel? Yeah. What is that, so we can actually decide if it's really a swing feel? So I think to your point about buzzwords, having to kind of dissect what they know about it and what it means for them. So good or bad, I don't know if there's, in the world of soft science, I gave you kind of a medium answer, but yeah. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Let's say like in the college world where they have like scoring kind of post-term, see what holes played hard or what stretches. Do you think that some kids kind of identify those tough holes in practice round and just kind of create that?
Yeah, you'll also see that a lot in golf teams. Coaches do kind of the pre-round analysis, and they'll be like, this is a really hard hole, everyone's got to like focus in, and you'll look at the scoring average, and it's usually they don't play it very well. I think you have to accept it. So this is a really hard hole, let's say, we're just going to own that that's what it is. So now we work backwards. So is it hard for you? Like when you look at this hole, what are you worried about? What are you thinking? You'll actually hear some people like, oh no, this isn't hard because I hit my drive, X amount of yards farther, I'm not worried about it. So I think when they identify that, you just have to come up with a really good plan. If it is in fact a hard hole, I always tell them do a reset before the hole gets started, right? And then again, have that proactive approach. If it's a birdie hole, the saying, you can't make birdie from the tee box, right? So if it's a birdie hole, what are you trying to do off the tee? I need to make sure that I hit it in the fairway. What do you do to hit it in the fairway? I've got the tempo. What's your swing dog going to be? And so you just really have to break it down. I think the only time it hurts you is if it just is labeled hard or easy and we don't have the bigger conversation. Does that help?
Yeah.
So I think, and it's hard because I think once you start having kind of the team, that's where I think all teams are hard because it does generate fear when maybe you didn't think it was that hard. So I think having a game plan and being able to be flexible as you go is also big. So it might play hard for you one day, it might play hard. I always tell people too, when you look at scores like that, it doesn't tell you the conditions. It doesn't tell you the level that was, like, it also doesn't tell you if this hole was playing hard. Maybe nobody that day was playing well. So you also have to take data kind of for what it is. So I also tell them, while it can help you, also remember that this isn't the whole story of if the hole is harder to see. So kind of breaking that down, you kind of own it, but also try to make some individual meaning of it as well. There was a question somewhere.
So we're fortunate enough that we get to be not very far from Dr. Mitchell, and we've got quite a few of our clients that get to see her. And I think one of the coolest things that I've probably learned amongst many things is the idea of being proactive in this mental skill training versus the reactive. I think too many times doc comes into play and it's become a very reactive thing. Things aren't well, and obviously this, but we've got to get to the point where we're starting to send players to her younger and sooner. Just like we're trying to build skills on a daily basis for the junior, I think we miss this mental skill portion before they start thinking that something wrong with it. The reality is they're human, they just don't know.
Well, and I also try to tell people when I talk to parents at the beginning, the sports psychology world has changed. It used to just be very crisis management, and we came in when I got the hips or I'm frozen or I don't know that I want to play anymore. And we're really getting to the part that you're just a part of the team, right? And so if we can get in when there isn't anything wrong, and I remind athletes of that, nothing is wrong. I'm just here, but I can meet you, I can hear about how things are going, and then you can shoot me a message when things aren't going well, and we don't have to start from the very beginning. I already know your story, you already know who I am, and then we just get to kind of go right into maybe problem solving, but we've already built kind of that relationship. So it's just, you're starting to see it move. You're getting hired by a lot of college teams, and you're just a part of the program, and kids can use you if they want to or not. So we're trying to move in that direction, but I still have to remind myself, as much as the space has grown, there is a lot of stigma still attached to it. So sometimes when you encourage a sports performance or you start to do an activity of mental performance, there still is a stigma of, are you fixing me? Am I broken? There's something wrong. So we still are educating both parents, schools, athletes, everybody that is just a part of it. But I sometimes forget, as far as we've come, I still think we have quite a ways to go to kind of normalize us as part of the game. Pros obviously are even talking about more as it being a part of their kind of team, but I still think, especially with little guys, I get a lot of juniors that are in the recruiting process that aren't getting any offers. They're like, hey, can you help me? Not next week, right? We can build a process and I can be a part of it, but it's like anything else. The mental game is a skill, and you're developing that muscle just working the bar as well.
I think some of the most valuable sessions we've had, which have happened enough, is like when us, the coach, and the mental performance coach are both together watching a player play. We've done quite a player play for 9 holes. Doc gets to hear me interact from a coaching standpoint. I get to hear her interact from a performance standpoint. I'm going to tell you, it's made us. We think it's made us better.
It's also the most fun I have too, so I'll take it and take it. Yes, sir.
How do you work with football? I have some students that you should play the same course, right? And there's this hole in particular where you can't get out of the line. I told them, hey, you should play different. You should drive around the tee now, use a 6-iron. But that won't work. They always double that same hole, and they're very scared when they get to that specific hole. What do you recommend?
So I like the path that you're going to have them do something different, but you have to change it up. So have them hit it from an actually different tee box. Have them play that hole and maybe only allow them to play with 2 clubs on that particular hole. Hey, you can only play this with a 7-iron and a putter, meaning from start to finish. So I like the idea that you're just trying to get a different memory, right? The problem with having them hit a 6-iron when they know they should be hitting a driver is just mentally you know that you're not supposed to be hitting this. But if the goal is I'm hitting it from a different tee box, or coach said I can only use a 7-iron even around the green, you're just creating a new memory and a new experience. So even if it goes poorly, then the next time they get to that hole, they're laughing about do you remember when I putted with my driver? So you're just trying to change the conversation so you don't kind of I think your idea, I would just get to it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I'm all, when I said 600, just a different.
Yeah.
Go, different.
Yeah, so play a different tee box or do something ridiculous and have them, use a pitching wedge from start to finish or something. You're trying to just shake it up so that they don't have that same memory every single time that they play it. Anything else? And like I said, if you have specific questions, I'm going to hang around afterwards, or also Scott will let you pass out index cards, write the questions. I'm absolutely happy to answer. This is my contact information. I had a shameless plug to put my 2 babies up here. I had 2 babies in 2 years, and I put them in paper stuff all the time. So email is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I do anything you guys need, virtual stuff, encore stuff, workshops. If you just have a random question, drop me a message. Anything you guys need. I'm super passionate about it. I also incorporate the mental health component as well. So if, a little bit of a serious note, if you ever have an athlete that's struggling in the mental space, anxiety, depression, suicide prevention, any of those things, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to reach out to them and make sure that they're supported from the mental health standpoint as well. So thank you guys so very much for your time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you guys.